Narcissists are avoiders. No, that does not mean they are avoidant attachers, dismissive or fearful. There is a big difference between narcissism and avoidant attachment. Let's get into it. First of all, both avoidant attachers and narcissists are avoiders, meaning there's a deep wound of shame inside of them. Shame is a toxic emotion. It's that feeling of I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, I'm defective, I'm worthless, I'm not lovable. Shame is a toxic emotion. It serves no healthy purpose. Avoiders avoid confronting and feeling that toxic emotion of shame. They can avoid it through seeking external validation to soothe themselves. They can avoid it by not self-reflecting, not looking within. They can avoid it through substance abuse like alcoholism, drinking to numb that emotion so they don't feel the pain and the shame. Distractive behaviors such as gambling addictions, sex addictions, drug addictions, things like that. Essentially, they are people that avoid that inner shame, and their behaviors are based around avoiding that shame through various different means. But narcissism is a personality disorder, not an attachment style. Dismissive avoidant attachment, fearful avoidant attachment, is an attachment style, which is a learned behavior. But it can be healed and unlearned and replaced with healthier, secure attachment. It is not a diagnosable personality disorder. Narcissists, they can actually appear sometimes to even be anxiously attached. They can appear to be dismissive, avoidant, or anything in between, but in reality, narcissists don't really have a true attachment style because they don't attach in the traditional sense. Their attachment behaviors that appear to be attachment behaviors are really how they've learned to get what they want, which is narcissistic supply. Narcissistic supply is the attention, validation, adoration, and power and control that a narcissist feels entitled to. They don't go into relationships seeking true love the way that somebody with an insecure attachment style would. Avoidant attachers want to be loved. They want to love and to feel love, but they just don't know how to handle it when they get it. Narcissists aren't really seeking that true love. They are seeking supply to stroke their ego, validate them, so they can continue to live in their false self and avoid that inner shame. Narcissism, it's a personality disorder that is marked by a very grandiose sense of self-importance and a deep wound of inner shame that they mask with something called a false self. The false self is the image of themselves that they project to the world, and they even delude themselves into believing that their false self is who they actually are. Their false self is always a perfect person. Whenever they do something bad, it's always somebody else's fault. They don't take accountability. They are pathologically unable to self-reflect and take accountability because if they were to, that means that their false self would shatter because they'll be proving themselves that they're not perfect and they would have to confront and face their inner shame. So narcissists will always make everything they do somebody else's fault. Now, avoidant attachers can struggle with accountability and self-reflection in the same way, but they're not pathologically unable to self-reflect. Many of them do get to that point where they do self-reflect and work on themselves and grow and heal. Now, narcissists really struggle with empathy. It is profoundly low with a narcissistic person. And the closest they really come to love itself is loving the attention you give them. Avoidants can struggle to bond. They can struggle to oxytocin bond. They can struggle to love in a deep, meaningful way, but they can ultimately do it. And they can feel empathy, even though they can struggle with that as well. Avoidant attachment does not have a malicious intent. Now, they can be very harmful, and some of the behaviors can be emotionally hurtful or even abusive, but the intent is not to harm. Narcissists, on the other hand, they can actually intend to harm their partner and get pleasure from it. Because when they elicit an emotional reaction, a reaction of pain from their partner, it means that they have control. They can affect you. They can get under your skin. They can hurt you, which means they are powerful. They have power over you. And power and control is a very important aspect for a narcissist. Avoidants, regardless of whether they're dismissive or fearful, do not desire that power and control. The only control they generally seek is controlling the emotional closeness of the relationship. But they generally don't seek to control you, your behaviors, and they don't really seek to hurt you because they don't get pleasure from your pain. Now, they can detach from their emotions and not show a lot of empathy, but they don't seek pain from you. It doesn't do anything for them. Pain from you actually does feed that narcissist's ego, makes them feel powerful, and they do get pleasure from your pain. Everything narcissists do is a manipulation to get supply. Every relationship they get into is transactional. They give you love bombing, they give you something, so you give them the supply in return. Avoidants believe that they are genuinely meaning it. They believe that they can form that long, loving, lasting relationship. They're not aware that they can't. They're not aware of their limitations in most cases. They want that love, but when they get it, they don't have the capacity to handle it. The emotional capacity and their insecurities do take over. But it is just simply an attachment style, and the intent is not malicious, even though the end result can be harmful. Now, both narcissists and avoidants can be very self-absorbed and selfish, and sometimes almost on an equal level. But the intent is truly vastly different. Now, when it comes to divorcing a narcissist versus divorcing an avoidant, if there are children involved, the narcissistic parent is almost always going to work to subtly or sometimes overtly alienate children from the other parent because it gives them that power and control. It hurts the other parent, which gives them supply, and gets them in more control over the children. And that helps them feel powerful. They need to be in the position of power and control at all times. Avoidants generally do not do this. Narcissists will also frequently launch a smear campaign against their ex when the breakup is done, because narcissists, well, if they are now the victim, they get to avoid accountability with friends and family, and they get supply by the way of sympathy. Oh, poor you, look at you, you're the victim. But avoidants generally do not do the smear campaign. They generally don't get into that emotional stuff, and they generally give vague answers as to why they break up with their exes. Now, narcissists also, they are completely unable to relate or empathize with their partner at all. Now, avoidants absolutely can, and they can feel that deep shame knowing that they've hurt you. Narcissists, not at all. Narcissists are constantly in manipulation mode. Everything they do is to gain an advantage in some way, shape, or form. Avoidants generally don't do this. So the level of gaslighting, manipulation, power, control, dynamics, the nastiness, the viciousness is always so much more on the side of a narcissist. And they're constantly doing behaviors that are hurtful or seeking to gain power, control, or adoration. Avoidants, on the other hand, they do need that external validation because they do feel insecure, but the level of nastiness, the level of viciousness is so much less. The intent is not to hurt. They're generally not out doing smear campaigns, not nearly as many games. Again, we're talking the difference between a personality disorder and an insecure attachment style. They are not the same thing. It can be confusing because the behaviors overlap, but they genuinely are not the same. Avoidant attachers are not narcissists. Narcissists are not avoidant attachers, but they are both avoiders of a certain kind.